Lux is a lonely, miserable orphan prince who destroyed his country because of corruption. He planned to rebuild it, but got checkmated before he could, and this led to the formation of a new country without him. And even though he is a hero, he is forced to pretend to be a weakling in an all-girls school. One day, while Lux chased after a cat on the rooftop buildings, he fell into a building and landed on a girl in the women's bath. He felt embarrassed, but thought he could handle the situation by complimenting how physically blessed she was as a girl. She got disgusted and screamed, calling him a disgusting perv, and threw his stupid ass in jail. A mysterious girl named Cru Cipher approached him. He tried explaining what happened, but the girl wasn't listening to his bullshit. She then saw his long black sword device and became fascinated. Another girl entered the prison and pointed out to Lux that the headmaster would want to see him now. At the headmaster's office, she recognized him as Lux, the prince of the former empire of Acadia, to the shock of the female students, who were surprised the ugly pervert was a prince. The headmaster mentioned that since they were the ones who called him there for a job, she would overlook the incident, and even though the school is filled with girls, she would like him to work there, to the shock of the female students. Lux insisted on not joining their useless academy, but she reminded him that boys like him are valuable and the sword he wields isn't for decoration. At that instant, the girl whose plot was violated stormed in and loudly announced to the headmaster that she wouldn't approve of the idiot coming to work in the school. While going close to him, she was warned by the other female students not to venture too close due to the fact that he had groping melons disorder, a rare type of plot disease. The headmaster finally decided to leave Lux's punishment to Lisha. Upon that realization, she challenged him to a duel, with the condition that if he won, then he could enroll in the academy and work there, but if he lost, he would go to jail as a criminal. The headmaster reminded her that Lux actually won the capital tournament, has yet to be defeated, and is known as the weakest undefeated. However, the girl instructed the other female student to announce that the princess of the new empire would get rid of the prince of the old. Then she introduced herself as Lishart. Lux realized she was the princess of the empire of Adismata, the empire that demolished his empire 5 years ago. On the day of the duel, Lux stepped out to the Colosseum. The battleground was covered with a force that acted as a barrier. Lishart engaged him and told him that she would reveal the reason for the challenge if he eventually won, which she doubted. Lux drew his sword device and summoned his wyvern. Lishart laughed at the sight of his wyvern as she summoned her wyvern, which was a divine drag ride, one that only strong people can handle power, to the amazement of Lux. Just then, the battle commenced. Lisha Drag Ride unleashed her mighty blaster cannons at him and started to fire at him while he dodged them. She asked him if he played rough because she liked it rough, and then sent multiple tiny dynamites at him, which he evaded. Undetermined, she fired directly at him and blasted him, damaging his sword. Lux apologized for being a cultured idiot. She got angrier and summoned her mighty blaster cannon. She also reminded him to get rid of his broken wyvern and use his other sword device, but he refused. So she immediately sent her metal tiny dynamites flying at him, which he evaded before charging a heavy, powerful blast, but he dodged all. At that moment, the princess, now frustrated, grew weary at the fact that she couldn't beat him and imagined the fight being a draw. She wondered if that was the reason they called him the weakest undefeated. She drew her sword again and told him to save his last words for the devil. Then she activated a divine skill and summoned a heavenly voice, which sent Lux crashing to the ground with a massive earthquake that destroyed the entire arena. She then tried to land a final attack with her tiny dynamites, but she suddenly lost control of her drag ride. At that moment, they heard the sound of a flute, which caused the barrier to disappear, and they encountered a fearful abyss with red, menacing, glowing eyes. An announcement was made telling the triad to evacuate all the students immediately and create a barrier encapsulating the abyss. Still, the abyss sent red flying darts at the barrier, shattering it completely. However, Lux began to attack the abyss, and while he did this, he asked Lishart to go to the ground level and target the abyss, while he lured the enemy to the target since he could not defeat the abyss alone. He instructed her to open fire as soon as he gave the signal. Lux fired at the abyss, which the monster evaded unfazed. The abyss went after the princess, but as Lux tried to prevent the enemy from going after the princess, he lost the arm of his drag ride. However, this opened the door for Lishart to unleash a powerful fire blaster that completely defeated the monster as Lux came crashing to the ground wounded. Later that night, while Lishart had her bath, she couldn't help but remember how Lux saved her, being the first time a guy tried protecting her. At the same time, Lux suddenly woke up from a terrifying nightmare and saw Lishart with a bowl of water, surprising him as he asked her if she had come to take care of him. She responded that it was because he saved her. However, she mentioned that the reason she challenged him to a duel was because she couldn't let him get away with seeing her plot in 360p. The perverted idiot apologized and told her he actually saw it in 4K, and she's got a nice plot, shocking her. But she said what she was talking about was the crest of the former empire engraved above her floodgate. She warned him, however, not to tell anyone about it, to which he swore on his sword device he wouldn't. After that, she informed him that he would be attending the academy as a student, and they would be classmates, to his amazement. The next day, Lux resumed at the academy. He introduced himself to the class as they wondered why he looked like a completely different specimen. He walked across the class to find his seat, and he came across this girl with mighty cannons the size of his head and immediately knew the cannons seemed familiar. He realized she was his childhood friend Filfy, so he decided to sit beside her and ditch the other females with flat chests, making Lish's heart red with envy. During the school's break time, all the girls fought, asking for hand service, but he told them it was one after the other. Lisha approached him and requested an exclusive service. She wanted him to be her assistant and caretaker, shocking everyone who wondered why she would like a guy to do that. However, with no more dignity left, she thought to herself that it was no big deal since he had seen her plot before anyway. Filfy stood up with her humongous cannons and warned her to leave Lux alone. Just then, they posed for a plot battle. Lisha wouldn't budge and tried to bribe Filfy with a donut, knowing she was a useless glutton, but she still didn't stop telling her to back off. Cru Cipher suddenly appeared just in the nick of time to save Lux from the two desperate nutcases. While they were outside, he thanked her and asked why she had helped him. She inquired about the Black Hero, the unknown lone drag knight who drove the former empire to defeat, whose identity has been a mystery to all, leaving Lux in shock. She instructed him to look for the Black Hero. The next day, he went to the repair shop to request his repaired wyvern, which was damaged during the fight earlier on, and shockingly discovered that Lisha was in charge of the repairs. She showed him his already repaired wyvern, which shocked him even more, and she informed him he would be joining the school's Mage Squadron, a special unit consisting of only the best cadets, and handed him a sword. He hesitated at first, but later agreed to do his best. Later that day, Lux and Lisha walked around the city, and they headed to the top of a tower to have a good view of the city. Lux pointed out how much of a worthy queen she is by being able to repair drag rides. Still, she responds that she is not worthy of being called a queen because the former empire held her hostage for her father's sake, who participated in the coup. They tortured her while she was abandoned by her father and also branded a crest just above her floodgate. The next morning, the bell rang and the Night Squadron cadets were dispatched to suppress a large-size Abyss attack. However, Lux was worried because 2 Abyss attacks had occurred within a short period. At the sight of the Abyss attack, the cadets surrounded a giant slimy substance with Lisha ready to attack. An ugly dude suddenly blew a flute that caused the giant slimy substance to emanate bright glowing light inside it, which caused it to explode. The explosion of the giant slime caused several ferocious abysses to emerge, and then the ugly dude introduced himself to Lisha as Velvet, the Akkadian Empire Night Squadron chief. He blew the flute again, and the abyss began to attack. Lisha fought back, and they blasted each other. One of the female cadets arrived back at the base and informed Lux and Irie that there was a serious problem on the battlefield. Lux grew eager to go save Lisha as Irie warned him that he couldn't fight with his outdated wyvern and would need to use his other black sword, but he assured her he would be fine. Meanwhile, at the battlefield, Lisha summoned the Heavenly Voice skill, causing a massive earthquake. She then beckoned on the remaining cadets to know if they were okay, but they informed her they needed to retreat. She told them she would need to annihilate Velvet, who was playing the flute because the flute manipulates the abyss. Soon, the abyss fired their missiles dart at her, and while she dodged them, Velvet smacked her to the ground and called her an annoying bitch. He revealed the crest on her belly and laughed like an ugly clown, after which he admitted he was actually the one who engraved the crest. Upon hearing these words, it angered her as she tried to unsheath her sword, but he flung it off her hand and it cut his face, upsetting him. Then he resolved to end her. As he stroked his sword, it was held by Lux as he began revealing to Lisha how he was a useless failure of a prince, but has now decided to help her become recognized as the new empire's queen. Utilizing his distraction, Velvet cut off his wyvern's arm and asked who his shit-face was. However, Lux activated his black sword device for the first time and transformed into the Black Hero, shocking Velvet, who wondered how the loser came across such a wyvern. He smacked Velvet around like a useless ball, and then he began to wreak massive damage to the abyss. At that point, it dawned on Velvet, who recognized him as Lux, the 7th Crown Prince of Acadia, and wondered why in hell he was fighting against him, as they were supposed to fight for the same purpose. Before he could conclude his thought, Lux summoned Reload on fire, dealing the final blow that impaled him. A few days later, at the academy, the students surprised Lux by throwing a party for him to celebrate his victory and thanked him for helping out the cadet. During the party, the headmaster informed him that they decided to hold a competition for him. She showed everyone a red envelope and announced that whoever got the envelope from Lux within an hour would have an exclusive right to use him the way she wanted for 1 week. If the form is still in his possession at the end of the game, then he doesn't have to follow anyone's order. The competition began with a multitude of girls dashing right at him as Lux screamed into hiding in a storehouse while they searched for him, but he soon discovered Lisha was there. She asked him about the Black Hero to distract him. While he answered her, she suddenly restrained him with her drag ride and asked for the envelope. He promised to give it to her if she let him go. A saltwater brain agreed, and just as the drag ride arm dropped him, he quickly ditched her ugly ass. While hiding in the bush, he bumped into Filfy, who told him someone offered her cake to find him and restrain him. She held his hands firmly, pressing her massive cannons against his back, and promised to give him her cakes if he gave her the envelope. Just then, the envelope fell to the ground, and in an attempt to pick it up, Lux was free. He swiftly got a hold of the envelope before her, as he would not simp over her melons like a hormonal teenager, and then ditched her. With 10 minutes left before the competition ended, he entered a room and quickly hid behind a box. At that instant, some girls came in and started removing their plot armor. Our boy finally realized that he was a hopeless, nasty pair who really needed help for always finding himself in Saw's positions. Cru Cipher came close with half-exposed plots and saw him hiding behind the boxes. At the moment, he thought of looking at her plots, but he felt it was a complete waste of time, as she was totally flat and had no plot to even hold the story. Still, he was worried she might spill. To his surprise, she kept it a secret. A few minutes later, after the other girls had left, she told him he didn't have to hide anymore as the time for the competition had passed. She asked if the envelope was intact, and the Moron gave it to her. But he soon realized that she had deceived him by manipulating the time and telling him the time was over just to get the envelope from him. She revealed that she had him for a week to do her every bidding, and starting now, she would want him to be her boyfriend for a week. The following morning, while they had breakfast, Cru Cipher pointed out to Lux his duties as her boyfriend for the week. She spoke about the reason she came to the new empire, and that it was because her family wanted her to find a noble suitor to get married to for political reasons, as do all royalties, and a butler from her family would be coming in a few days to check the status of her engagement and announce it, so she wanted him to pretend as her plot partner. However, Lux told her he wouldn't want to associate with an ugly bitch. Still, she threatened him that if he didn't follow through, then everyone would know of his earlier peeping incident with the girls. The next day, Cru Cipher took him to a clothing store to get some expensive wear, as he'd always been known to dress like a homeless brokey with zero fashion sense. That evening, while they searched for a restaurant to eat, they were attacked by some morons who fired at them as Lux saved her. Cru Cipher instructed Lux to handle the two morons in front of them, giving her an opportunity to summon her drag ride. Lux sliced one like cabbage and pushed the other to the ground as Cru Cipher summoned her Fafnir Wyvern. At that moment, the drag knights levitating on top of the building fired at Lux, but was shielded by Cru Cipher Wyvern. The drag knights decided to attack her instead, but she activated Wise Blood and predicted their future moves, defeating them in one shot each. Lisha and Filfy appeared, and Lux wondered what their ugly faces were doing there. One of the two attackers from earlier quickly took to his heels and tried to escape, but was strangled to slumber like a useless fly by Alterize, who suddenly appeared. Cru Cipher revealed she was the family butler she told him about. Later that night, while they had dinner, she mentioned to Alterize that Lux was her classmate and boyfriend. Just then, a random dude named Barzarite of the Four Great Nobles suddenly appeared and called Cru Cipher his future wife. Alterize confirmed it and told her the marriage plans had been concluded. However, Cru Cipher informed his worthless ass that she was already dating the guy. So Barzarite challenged Lux to a drag night duel to decide the ultimate alpha male, but Cru Cipher suggested they paired up instead. She and Lux team up against him and Alterize, which was settled and the duel fixed for 3 days. Before long, Barzarite held a conversation with a mysterious man in his chambers, who informed him that the key needed to access the depths of the ruins was already in his hands, referring to Cru Cipher, as Barzarite laughed like a deranged clown. In a castle far away, the four great nobles were summoned for an urgent meeting regarding Ragnarok, a powerful abyss awakened with powers concealed in the ruins. They all suggested they have to prepare for that occurrence, as the new empire isn't yet strong enough to face a Ragnarok. One of the four nobles suggested they keep investigating the ruins in order to suppress Ragnarok, and would like his son Barzarite to lead the investigation of the ruins. At the same time, at the academy, the headmaster gathered the Knight Squadron cadets and informed them of the need to investigate the ruins. She revealed the acquired horn-shaped flute and pointed out that this might be the key to entering the deepest parts of the ruins, as she handed it over to Lux to be in charge. Lux cited Cru Cipher and wondered why she was attending the meeting even though transfer students were prohibited. He went after her, but she informed him she would be joining the investigation team. The next day, just as the cadets prepared to set out for their investigation of the ruins, the instructor informed them that Barzorai would be participating, shocking everyone. As the arrogant face stepped in and introduced himself, Lisha demanded to know why the dickhead was joining them in investigating the ruins. Barzorai told her she should have trained her ugly face instead of her combat skills. He assured her he was there to protect his future wife, Cru Cipher, and he was also the head of the investigation unit. Just as they got to the ruins, Cru Cipher immediately moved towards it, leaving the others behind. Suddenly, a powerful, monstrous ripped abyss called Diabolos appeared. It immediately lunged towards one of the cadets, but Lux quickly intercepted and collided with it. The collision almost crushed his wyvern drag knight, but Lisha fired her laser cannon at the abyss to save him. They fired their weapons at it, but the abyss shrugged off all the attacks at ultra speed. However, Barzorai told them their efforts were as useless as Lux's face and intervened with a powerful laser blast. Cru Cipher soon appeared and immediately charged towards the abyss as she summoned Wise Blood, but the abyss evaded it, leaving her in shock. Shortly, the blast of their weapons collided as the abyss's fiery blast overpowered her blast and nearly burnt her to a crisp with flames powerful enough to roast even the devil, but she was saved just in time by Lux. The abyss continued to dodge all the myriads of attack they unleashed at it with ultra speed. Barzorai suddenly summoned an axe and made a direct hit, causing Diabolos to self-destruct while emitting a very bright light. The cadets managed to protect themselves from the blinding light by summoning a barrier. At that moment, Cru Cipher's Fafnir suddenly lost control as the ruins glowed. Upon seeing this, Lux immediately proceeded to protect her, but they both got sucked into the ruins. He suddenly woke up in a strange place and wondered where he was. Cru Cipher replied that they were pulled into the ruins after the explosion. She thanked him for saving her and then suggested they head to the altar at the center to regroup with the rest of the team. While walking, she fell from exhaustion, so Lux offered to support her as they headed to the altar. On getting inside, Cru Cipher walked up to the center while Lux brought out the flute with the intention of blowing it as he thought it was the key. As Cru Cipher approached the entrance, the center suddenly got activated and emitted a bright neon light, shocking Lux. Then he discovered that the flute wasn't the key after all, and Cru Cipher wasn't human, but a survivor of the ruins and was the key. Suddenly, a violent earthquake occurred. Lux sprinted to rescue Cru Cipher, but they found themselves trapped further inside the ruins with no place of escape. Cru Cipher narrated to Lux how her father found her in the ruins and adopted her. Just as they talked and bonded, Lisha drilled a hole into the ruins bigger than Cru Cipher's hole with her drag ride. Later that evening, Cru Cipher gave Irie the red envelope as she didn't want Lux to be involved with the mess going on in her life. She faced Barzorai and Altairiza alone as Barzorai inquired about her boyfriend and partner, but she insisted she had to send him back to fight alone. Just then, Barzorai summoned his drag ride as Altairiza readied herself and planned on summoning hers. Barzorai instructed her to sit it out as he drained her of all her cosmic energy, knocking her unconscious. The battle kicked off with an explosive exchange of shots. Barzorai soon realized that Cru Cipher's Fafnir could predict his moves, and cunningly, he started draining her powers without her noticing. Cru Cipher became frustrated as her attacks mysteriously missed even with her powerful Wise Blood spell. Barzorai made a direct hit and knocked her down with a brutal axe strike. At that moment, Lux hurled his sword at Barzorai, who dodged it, narrowly escaping his ugly face as a pancake. Barzorai recognized the black hero drag ride and called him his simp who ran away for years only to reveal his true identity for the sake of a worthless girl. Lux responded and told him she was important to him and threatened to slice his ugly head. Lux summoned Reload on fire, charging at full speed. Yet Barzorai's barriers held strong, revealing that he had stolen Cru Cipher's Wise Blood, enabling him to read Lux's every move. As Barzorai fired his laser gun, Lux unleashed his divine shield and was grabbed in the arm by Cru Cipher, who drained his power. Barzorai unleashed a barrage of attacks on Lux and landed his mighty axe on him, but it collided with Lux's blade as they charged at each other. Barzorai launched a series of blasts at Lux, which he shielded and charged at him with his blade but was blocked by Barzorai's shield. Lux's drag ride started blinking wildly as he began to lose control. At that moment, Cru Cipher urged him to stop as she wept bitterly, but Lux was resolute to fight on for the sake of their worthless love. Just as Barzorai thought victory was within his grasp, Lux activated Recoil Burst, an incredibly powerful move that obliterated Barzorai. Several weeks later, Lux, disguised as a hideous drag queen, sneaked around the school at night, but he was met by the instructor, who warned him about a stalker lurking in the shadows. Lux, puzzled, wondered how no one had seen through his disguise. Earlier that day, he had encountered Sheris, who revealed the presence of a terrifying Ragnarok in the country. She also mentioned a girl named Celestia, the daughter of one of the 4 great nobles. who was powerful enough to battle a Ragnarok. She added that Celestia was the strongest in the academy and would soon return to the capital, but there was a rumor that she despised men. Upon this revelation, Sheris asked him to patrol the academy for her. Just then, with the help of other mean girls, they overpowered him and forced girls' plots on him. As Lux wondered about the mysterious Celestia being the strongest in the academy, he heard rustling in the bushes and a female voice. He stood up to investigate, only to find a miserable, deranged girl named Celestia talking to a cat. He wondered who allowed a mad person to roam this late at night. Suddenly, a stranger appeared behind him and placed a dagger in his gut. He nearly shit his pants as he thought it was the stalker the instructor had warned earlier. However, Celestia swiftly came to his defense, but the stranger dropped his smoke bomb and fled. As they thought the danger had passed, the stranger threw a dagger at Celestia from a distance, but Lux deflected it, injuring himself in the process. At that instant, Celestia hurried Lux to the infirmary, and she tended to his wounds. Lux, not wanting to blow his cover, insisted she treated him from behind, but she told him he looked like a female gorilla. Afterward, she escorted him to his room, and he introduced himself as Luno. Meanwhile, Barzarai got a visit in prison from a mysterious cloaked man. He assured the man he wouldn't lose to a useless kid next time, but the man felt he was just a waste of space and then, with a touch of the finger, transformed him into a monster. On the other hand, Lux needed to speak with Celestia concerning Ragnarok's threat. He was called to the headmaster's office, where Lisha and Celestia were locked in a heated argument about his presence in the school as the only male. Celestia, known for her disdain for men, wanted him expelled. Lux tried to explain the danger of Ragnarok, but Celestia silenced his filthy mouth and told him she would handle it alone. Lux refused to back down and insisted that Ragnarok was too powerful for her to suppress alone. The headmaster intervened, suggesting a duel in 3 days. If Lux won, he was allowed to stay in the academy and also help out with the Ragnarok. Celestia accepted the challenge. That night, a random girl named Sania visited Celestia to encourage her quest to expel Lux. While Lux was having a chat with the other girls, he received a request for a massage. To his shock, it was Celestia who had summoned him. After the plot massage, Celestia, still facing the other side and unaware of his true identity, thanked him. Lux quickly disguised himself as Luno, his female disguised character, and Celestia, excited to see Luno, invited her for lunch. Luno, alias Lux, agreed to join her for lunch and then left hastily, only to be confronted by Sania, who told him she had never seen such an ugly face in the academy. Fortunately, Cru Cipher appeared just in time to rescue him, recognizing Lux through his disguise. Lux inquired to know how she recognized him. Even with the disguise, she revealed he had a disgusting aura. Only a moron would know it's him. The next day, Lux, still posing as Luno, met Celestia for lunch. They spent time together, wasting each other's time on worthless activities. Celestia revealed to him that as the night leader, she has to be strong, and people thought she hated men, but she didn't, and she was actually fond of them. Meanwhile, at the imperial capital, a worthless bald man reported grim news. The Ragnarok couldn't be found. At the same time, in the academy, the night squadrons were whisked away to a remote island for a high-stake training camp. With the girls in swimsuits, Lux used his BTS charm to blow every girl's plot armor off. On the day of the duel, the instructor commanded them to draw their swords and prepare to mount their drag rides. Celestial unleashed her powerful Lindworm, while Lux mounted his Wyvern. However, in the bush, Sheris and Tilfer spotted a masked Frick spy in broad daylight, who was responsible for recording information from the academy and sending it to the enemy, as well as for the commotion of the stalker. They confronted the spy, revealing they knew she was Sania. Sania, knowing the jig was up, dropped the disguise act, admitting her mission to destroy the new empire and isekai everyone. She drew her sword and unleashed a dark neon drag ride, which later transformed into a high-tech drag ride to the amazement of Sheris and Tilfer. Suddenly, they heard the sound of a flute. The duel between Lux and Celestial intensified as Celestial unleashed powerful lightning, shaking the ground beneath Lux. She told him to surrender because his drag ride was losing control, but just then, he activated Recoil Burst, surging toward her at full speed. At that instant, Celestial teleported using Divine Gate. Just as she was about to unleash her Starlight Zero to send Lux to Nirvana, a powerful abyss with tentacles like an octopus erupted from the ground, shocking everyone. Chaos ensued as everyone was asked to evacuate the battleground. Meanwhile, Irie was concerned and wondered where Filfy was, as her massive cannons could come in handy at the moment. Meanwhile, Filfy wandered through the forest and felt exhausted as she encountered her sister, the headmaster. She comforted Filfy, promising to protect her from being taken again. At the battleground, Lux approached Celestial and asked her if she was okay from the impact of the abyss. Lux informed her the abyss was the Ragnarok close to the resurrection. However, Celestial, driven by guilt, told him she would fight the monster on her own, but Lux felt it was ridiculous, and she couldn't defeat it on her own. Celestial charged at the beast, delivering barrages of strikes and using the Divine Gate to evade the attack of the Abyss, and with a vicious strike, she impaled it, forcing it to retreat. At that moment, Lux checked on her, and they were surprised to see Sania. She arrived in her drag ride and revealed she was actually impressed Celestial was still alive and threatened to wipe them out without a trace. Just then, the mysterious cloaked stranger revived the tentacled Abyss with the flute's tune. Lux sighted the mysterious cloaked evil man and wondered if it was his brother Fugil. They were shocked to see the monster resurrect. Utilizing their distraction, Sania seized the moment and attacked Celestial, but Lux intercepted her attack. Sania tried to turn Lux against Celestial and revealed that it was Celestial who actually killed his grandfather. Just as the monster struck with one of its tentacles, Sania fired at Celestial, sending her crashing to the ground. Lux hurried to Celestial's side, and she apologized to him that it was actually her fault his grandfather died. At that moment, he deactivated his wyvern and unleashed the Black Sword device. Celestial recognized it as the sword Luno had, and Lux apologized for the deception, then activated Bahamut, transforming into the legendary Black Hero. He got to protect her and charge at the revived Ragnarok. Sania blocked him, but Lux swiftly severed her wyvern arm. She warned that it was too late to stop the monster, but Lux activated Reload on fire and sliced through the Abyss tentacles at ultra speed. Entering beast mode with end action, he wreaked more havoc on the Abyss, finally defeating it. But as the monster fell, Celestial begged Sania to surrender, but she wouldn't budge. Sania grabbed the core of the beast and flowed with the mysterious cloaked man, but not until the cloaked stranger unveiled himself. Lux realized it was not his brother but an ugly dude named Hayes and thought his face looked worse than human waste. Hayes declared his intent to revive a nightmare from 5 years ago, leaving Lux confused as he struggled to remember. But at that instant, Sania sent a blast his way, which he shielded and realized they fled. That night, as Lux treated Celestial's wounds, she told him she wasn't happy with the Luno deception, for which he apologized again, but she revealed that she was actually glad he saved her. She told him she would accept his entry into the academy on the condition he will teach her how to relate with guys, to which Lux agreed. Later that night, Lux tried juggling his memory to remember the incident from 5 years ago and had a flashback of the massacre that happened, shocking him as he couldn't really remember the actual incident. Suddenly, an enormous whale-like structure emerged from the ocean, and the headmaster revealed it to be one of the ruins. She then decided to declare the true purpose of the training camp, leaving everyone in suspense. The next day, Lux went to check up on Filfy, who collapsed, but she told him she was okay and would accompany them to investigate the ruins. Later on, the students mounted their drag rides, ready to explore the mysterious ruins. However, the headmaster was worried about Filfy, who doesn't seem to be feeling well. Inside the ruins, the team began their investigation, eventually splitting into groups to cover more ground. Lux is paired with Nokuto and Irie, but seeing Celestia was abandoned to work the ruins alone, Lux offered that she accompany his team to investigate the ruins, which she accepted. As they ventured deeper, Irie warns Lux not to touch her roommate. Nokuto, because he climaxed at the touch of every girl in the academy, feeling embarrassed, Nokuto remarked that Lux had never seen her as a girl. Suddenly, Nokuto notices a human-like shape ahead. They investigated and discovered a child sleeping under the rubble. Cru Cipher arrived and touched her chin. Just then, she awoke and introduced herself as Kurush, an automation created to supervise the ruins. She can't recall much from the past, but consistently addressed Cru Cipher as administrator and told her she would obey her every command. Lux and Cru Cipher introduced her to the rest of the team, who felt she was small and cute. However, Cru Cipher confided in Lux that she can't completely trust Kurishi, who consistently calls her administrator, even though there is a creator. Meanwhile, Filfy felt increasingly unwell. Lux, concerned, told her to stick with him. Back at the Imperial Palace, the 4 great nobles gathered to discuss Velvet, who had escaped from prison and was rallying a rebel army. They proposed sending the Academy students to combat this threat. Inside the ruins, Lux carried Filfy on his sticky drag ride. Upon reaching the Abyss production area where the Abyss was created, Filfy felt severe pain in her head as Hayes, from a distance, played his flute. An Abyss emerged and attacked, charging towards Lux and sending him crashing to the ground. As the Abyss attacked one of the students, Lux prevented the attack and punched the monster. The monster charged at him and bit his wyvern, causing an explosion that ripped his wyvern arm apart. Lux recognized it as the same creature they faced before, the Diablos. Meanwhile, Kurishi warned that the ruins released 3 Abyss when in a state of alert. Lux suggested halting the investigation, but the headmaster declined. Suddenly, Filfy activated her drag ride and dashed off to find the abyss. Surprised, Lux unsheathed his black sword, activated his Bahamut, and followed her, concerned for her well-being. Upon reaching the center of the ruin, they are abruptly transported to a strange place. The Diablos attacked instantly, and Lux quickly sliced through and defeated it, as the surroundings triggered a horrific memory from his past. As he searched for Filfy, he stumbled upon an abandoned building, once used for human experiments by the former Empire. Memories from 5 years ago flooded back as he walked, feeling quite disoriented from his fuzzy memories. He found Filfy weak and unwell. He tried to help her, but she grabbed his neck like a chicken, choking him against the wall as she morphed into an abyss. However, just as he mentioned her pet name, which he used to call her when they were little, she immediately returned to her senses and collapsed to the ground. Suddenly, Hayes appeared with a sinister grin on his face. Meanwhile, in another part of the ruin, the others managed to annihilate 2 abyss and discover the entrance to the deepest part of the ruin. They needed a key to open the door, but Cru Cipher remained secretive about her being the key. Lux held a sword to Hayes' neck and threatened him to save his breath for the devil, so no excuse would save him from hell, but Hayes warned that Filfy would die if he traveled to Nirvana, shocking Lux. Hayes revealed that the seed of the Ragnarok had been planted in her, and the seed consumed a person from the inside, eventually morphing them into an abyss that obeyed the Ragnarok commands. Filfy's refusal to obey the command caused her fever and headaches. He further revealed that the Ragnarok had commanded her to kill Lux, and if Filfy continued to disobey, she would suffer greatly like she was in hell and turn to ash. Hayes offered Lux a deal that if he opened the door to the deepest part of the ruin with his baddie Cru Cipher, who was the key, within 2 days, he would save Filfy. Later that night, Lux approached the headmaster, who revealed that Filfy had died but was experimented on and miraculously survived, becoming more powerful. She later discovered that she was turning into an abyss. This was why she brought the Mage squadrons to the island and sent them to the ruin, hoping to save Filfy with its powers. The following day, Lux went to the repair shop. Lisha revealed to him a new hidden ability she added to Bahamut's wyvern called Over Limit. However, she warned that it could end him if he used it without its disarming code, and she needed to seek the headmaster's permission before he could use it. At that instant, Lux suddenly heard his brother's voice over the comm, who advised him to break Hayes' flute in order to save Filfy. Later in the ruins, Cru Cipher opened the door to the deepest part, but they couldn't find the old documents they were looking for. Just then, Kurishi regained her lost memories and suddenly turned into an evil doll, telling them her command was to slay them all. Hayes appeared with a core and the devil flute in hand with Filfy beside him. He blew the flute, commanding Filfy to annihilate everyone. At that instant, she activated her drag ride, ready to send them all to their maker. As they all activated their drag ride, Kurishi controlled some unmanned drag rides, shocking Lux. The unmanned wyverns launched an attack against Lux at an ultra speed, and he knew they used the over limit. Celestial charge at Filfy, who knocked her against the wall of the ruins unfazed. Filfy summoned Missing Fate and Cru Cipher's Wise Blood, but Filfy overpowered them, rendering their drag rides ineffective. Just then, Irie, holding Velvet's flute, suddenly blows it, overriding Hayes' control over Filfy. Furious, Hayes tried to blow his flute again, but Filfy stopped him. Desperate, he summoned a monstrous skull head, Ragnarok. As they all fired at the Ragnarok, their efforts only strengthened the beast. Seeing they were out of options, Lux asked Lisha for permission to use Over Limit. She rushed to get the disarming code. As he activated Reload on fire, he moved at an incredible speed while recalling his brother's words about him being the most useless brain-dead prince. He sliced multiple times at the monster, but with every injury unleashed on the beast, it grew stronger. The Ragnarok then restrained him, and while he struggled to lose its grip, Hayes called him an idiotic prince who was far too worthless for his position and with no future plans. Filfy, on the other hand, began to motivate him as Lisha sent the disarming code for Over Limit. At that instant, Lux activated Over the Limit, and the Bahamut's power surged, leaving Hayes in shock as he commanded his useless puppet to attack. Lux charged at the Ragnarok with unparalleled strength, annihilating it in that instant by impaling its core. Upon that realization, Kurush, shocked and confused, drifted off into a peaceful slumber. A few weeks later, the Academy celebrated Lux as he returned and recovered. However, the headmaster informed him of a major event, the largest event in the entire country, the upcoming Foundation Festival in the capital. That evening, his women argued about who would have him as a date for the event. To settle the dispute, the headmaster then suggested he select 3 girls who worked the hardest at the training camp as his dates. The following day, Lux and Irie walked down the street, and she informed him of the all-dragon battle during the festival, a tournament where all the countries gather and battle it out while betting their rights to survey the ruins. However, he, along with a knight squadron, was selected to represent the country. Irie also warned him to keep a low profile as the Empire's assassin Blade had escaped from prison and had been aiming for him since he destroyed it. Also, he was not in the best condition to engage in a fight. Later that day, Lux, in a tuxedo, meets up with Celestia as they go on a date. In the evening, he encounters Cru Cipher for his second date. Later on, he went for his third date and approached Massive Melon's Filfy as she waited for him. At night, he met a jealous Lisha, who was bitching about her not getting picked for the date. However, she requested that he became her knight, as she will be addressing the nation as their queen on the last day of the festival and would like to introduce him. The following day, he met his sister at the top of the tower, and they discussed his health condition relating to Bahamut usage. Irie revealed that due to his current state, he can only operate Bahamut for 12 minutes. Suddenly, a girl appeared. Lux, thinking she was the escaped assassin, immediately drew his sword and ready to fight. However, she called him master and introduced herself as Yoruka, a former drag knight of the Emperor's family. Lux asked if she came to kill him, but she responded that she actually came to serve him. The situation became awkward when she suggested she came to offer her rice cake to him and started caressing his plot. Irie, realizing they might develop a plot at that instant, quickly snapped him back to reality and he insisted they talk about it later. As she fled, Irie was disappointed she had a useless simp for a brother who climaxed at every girl he met. Later that day, while Lux had a shower, Yoruka appeared behind him, rubbing her melons against his back. When the other girls walked in on them, they caught them in a Saz position. As he tried explaining the situation, they screamed at the cultured idiot and told him to go to hell. At night, Lux met Yoruka as he inquired why she wanted to serve him. She mentioned she intended to fight till the very end to overthrow the new empire to rebuild the former empire, shocking him. She further pointed out that he needed to destroy the fake empire and rebuild it, but Lux informed her that he had no intention of doing that. She tricked him into looking at the moon, then immediately attempted to Isekai him. Celestial appeared just in time to block her strike, with Filfy, Lisha, and Cru Cipher also arriving in their drag rides. Yoruka with a flaming sword activated her drag ride, the God's Knight. Filfy tried to restrain her with her rope, but she cast a spell that manipulated her drag ride into attacking her allies. However, she assured Lux of her loyalty, promising to reveal a precious secret as proof if he would come along with her. He declined, and then she disappeared using camouflage. Meanwhile, at the ruins, Ha-Yes and his team continued their plan to overthrow the new empire, with Yoruka collaborating with him. Meanwhile, Lux and his sister, Irie, were summoned to the Imperial Palace for a meeting with the four great nobles. They were informed about the ongoing plan of the former empire's survivors to revive their empire, and the man leading it was Velvet, shocking Lux. The plan is set to occur right after the all-dragon battle at the Foundation Festival. The nobles wanted Lux to serve as a decoy, to lure the Abyss hiding in villages since they are concealed due to the power of the flute, and he must destroy them before they attack. Irie initially objected due to her brother's current health condition, but one of the nobles promised that if they cooperated, the principal of the academy and the students would have the charge they faced for going into the ruins overlooked. Lux decided to take on the task, and he was also instructed by the nobles to win the dragon battle. The all-dragon battle commenced. Lux, using his wyvern, won his battle, completely annihilating his opponent. After winning his fight at the tournament, Lux headed to carry out his mission for the nobles. During Lish's battle, her drag ride was manipulated, causing her to fire at the audience, and she was arrested and taken into custody. Lux arrived at the Abyss hideout, where he was ambushed by Sania, who suddenly fired at him. As he dodged her attacks, she blew the flute and summoned a fleet of Abyss that immediately attacked him. He tried dodging their attacks and fighting them off as he lured them to where they would be obliterated. Later that night, Lux realized they had fallen for the enemy's trap. At that moment, he heard shootings outside the camp. He stormed outside to find the rebel army, led by Velvet, launching an assault. Lux summoned his drag ride and battled the rebel army. Just then, he encountered Velvet and he charged at him while they exchanged attacks. Velvet warned him of the greater calamity, more powerful than Ragnarok, approaching the new empire. Suddenly, a quaking sound revealed a colossal monster approaching from afar, known as the Giant Warrior of the Fifth Ruin. With no other choice, Lux unsheaths his black sword device. Just then, Lux decided to use the Bahamut's enhanced abilities, mindful of the 12-minute limit as he clashed blades with Velvet. Lux activated Howling Roar, unleashing powerful electricity, but Velvet deflected it and then, with precision, sliced off Lux's wyvern arm, dropping it to the ground. But he became surprised when he saw Lux unscathed and wondered how there were two Bahamut. Lux explained that the other was a decoy wyvern wearing Bahamut armor, a plan he devised with Lish's counsel. At that realization, Velvet grew angry and charged at him, but Lux evaded his attack at ultra speed. Lux called Irie, and she informed him of Lisha's dire situation in prison. Meanwhile, Lisha was surprised to see Sania, who visited her in prison. Sania informed her of the destruction of the city by the colossal monster. Sania ordered her to step down as the queen of the empire, but she declined to hand over the empire to Ha-Yes. Sania pointed out that she was once a traitor to the empire, with a crest above her floodgate as proof. Sania told her to stop acting innocent and ordered 2 donkeys to remove her plot armor to reveal the crest. Just as they were about to rip her armor apart, they were interrupted by Lux, who busted the prison wall open, urging Sania and her useless minion to scram to safety. At the same time, the colossal giant warrior threatened to lay waste to the new empire. Cru Cipher and Filfy attacked the monster, but their efforts were useless, like my dad, who left to buy milk and never returned. The monster continued his advance to the empire until Lisha intervened with her heavenly voice divine skill. Lux joined her to combine his reload on fire with her heavenly voice, and together they unleash a devastating combined assault, causing an explosive onslaught that momentarily stopped the giant warrior. Filfy restrained the monster with her rope. Cru Cipher summoned freezing cannons and froze the limbs of the beast, restraining it momentarily. The winged abyss continued ravaging the city, and Lux ordered Filfy and Cru Cipher to deal with them while he and Lisha went for the giant monster. At that instant, Ha-Yes, using the power of his drag ride, unleashed a devastating strike that divided the city asunder. Meanwhile, Filfy and Cru Cipher battled the rebel army. Sania was ambushed by Celestia, who told her she thought she knew her, but she was wrong, and because of that, the devil would know her better in hell. Meanwhile, Lisha attacked Ha-Yes to stop his further damage to the city, and he sent her flying with a strike. Amidst the chaos, Lux entered the mysterious 5th ruin, and Yoruka intercepted him, but as Lux informed her he was trying to save her, they clashed their weapons as she mentioned she was fighting for her brother. Just as she manipulated his wyvern, she had a flashback of her brother. Utilizing her distraction, Lux delivered with precision a powerful strike that sent her crashing to the ground. Meanwhile, Kuroshi prepared for the ruin's catastrophic activation, and Ha-Yes launched a powerful strike that almost ended Lisha, but she was saved by Lux. Kuroshi informed Ha-Yes that the capital would be destroyed in 30 seconds. With the 10-second countdown, Yoruka destroyed the core and disarmed it just moments before the new empire's destruction, putting Kurosh into a deep slumber as usual. Enraged and betrayed, Ha-Yes resolved to destroy the empire single-handedly, but Lisha attacked him as they clashed their blades. He landed a powerful strike and sent her flying, and just then, Lux invoked Reload on fire to deliver a decisive blow that ended Ha-Yes' threat for good. Amidst the celebration of the festival's final day, Lisha rendered her speech as the queen and proclaimed Lux as her trusted knight. However, her speech began to drag, and the people cheered so it could end. Later on, Lux shared a moment with Lisha as he sighted his brother in the distance. He wielded his sword, but Fugil fled. He got to serve his country and academy faithfully alongside his comrades. The girls approached him, and Yoruka pledged her loyalty to him. Will Lux's brother be a threat in the future? That's definitely something to watch out for. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, be sure to comment Lux below. Also subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. See you on the next one.